I oversee SPI's All Access Pass, which is our newer community, but it's also our biggest community. We have about 1,200 members currently. I was an elementary teacher for 7 years. I'm used to teaching 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And I feel like running a community of business owners and adults is going to be very different. And I remember the person that became my manager said, I think you're going to realize it's very, very similar. The biggest difference is how kids and adults are motivated. You can see all my tabs on the top. This tends to be what I have open a lot and use a lot. We have a very small team. I believe full-time right now we have 9 people,
Wow.
8 or 9, and we have 2 on the community team. There's me and one other.
You're an expert at sprinkling community elements in existing courses that turn them into transformational experiences.
They tried more traditional live teaching. It was you had to get on Zoom at the same time every day. It wasn't working great because they couldn't reach as many people. Live cohorts with live teaching are also expensive. So I created accelerators. Big pro tip for anyone who wants to try this. A catch-up week is really great and really appreciated by people because life happens. One element that really makes accelerators unique is everybody's going through the same thing at the same time. And then every Thursday, Pat Flynn holds office hours. Fridays is an asynchronous check-in. So it's a post from me saying, hey, anytime before Monday, come to this post and answer these 2 questions. The only mandatory element of the accelerator is you reply to that check-in once a week and answer the questions. Somebody once called it positive peer pressure. We run it on average twice a year because we tend to get a lot of new members when we market the YouTube accelerator. I would cut up the workshop that they did into small chunks. Those are your lessons. And then I go a little further. Once again, this is where my background comes in handy. I made a workbook that goes along with it. So the workbook isn't just like define this or something like that. It's actually like tying it and making it applicable to their own business. And we got to market it essentially as a new mini course.
Welcome to Beginner Maps, where we interview operators of top community businesses so that you can replicate the best of what these community builders have already figured out. Today, I am thrilled to have Ashley from Smart Passive Income with us. Ashley is the Learning Community Manager for SPI, where she manages their popular membership called the SPI All Access Pass. For those who aren't familiar with SPI, it is an online school started by Pat Flynn to help creators build businesses. Now, they have thousands of people in their paid community. Ashley is here to tell us about her magic sauce and how she is able to keep this membership thriving. So thrilled to have you here, Ashley. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to chat community today.
Amazing. Tell me about the people who are in SPI All Access. Yeah, what are they here for? In a world with endless content, often AI generated, authentic connections with people who get it is huge. It might just be what your people need to get the outcomes they're looking for. We've created the tool to help you foster such connections on autopilot. Using curated connections, you can create matching programs that match members based on complementary skills, goals, and backgrounds. You can also use it to host a member directory that is designed to foster connections. The best part is it all works over email, so you can use it no matter which platform your community is on. Some of the top communities like Journalist World, Limited Supply, and Rails Foundation are already using it. So check it out at curatedconnections.io or go to the link in the show notes below. Now back to the show.
So first of all, SPI has 2 communities. So this is how we're set up. I oversee SPI's All Access Pass, which is our newer community, but it's also our biggest community. There's also SPI Pro, which I will not be going too much into today. SPI Pro was the original community started by SPI. And it is application-based. It is for serious business owners, people already with a tried and true track record of running a business who want to grow mainly from like peer networking, masterminds, that sort of thing, talking to top experts in the field. So what the All Access Pass is, we have about 1,200 members currently, I believe, and we are a learning-based community. we are not application based. We're at a very affordable price point. So anybody who even wants to start a business, who is getting serious about trying to niche down, figure out their business, or people who are a little more intermediate, you have your business going, but you want to keep growing. Maybe you want to add an offer, you want to add an online course, or you want to add a podcast. We are where you can go for that. So we are a community, but we also house all of our online courses that we've ever created. We have mini courses, we have weekly workshops that are really driven by what the community wants and needs. And we also have obviously those community spaces where people can network with one another and really grow alongside each other.
Amazing. I love the umbrella of things that you're providing here. And just to make it clear for the listeners, what type of businesses are people in the community creating?
I think the beauty of the All Access Pass is it's not just one type of business. I feel for people who want a membership that is specific on healthcare businesses or tech businesses, you're not going to necessarily find that here. So what I really love about the All Access Pass is it's a wide variety. And so I'm an entrepreneur myself. So when I'm not at SPI, I'm working on my own business in the education niche. And what I love about SPI, and I've even grown from, is once you get into like those more niche communities, like, and we're niche, but not like super pinpointed niche. Once you get into those, I feel like there's like one way of thinking, one way to do things. And I've learned so much from people in so many different types of industries that I can carry it over and be innovative in my own niche. I would say the majority of our members, though, run digital businesses, and those are the people that are going to get the most out of our services. But we do have some brick and mortar people as well.
Nice. That's amazing. I'm curious, what's your business about?
Yeah. So my current business I've run for 7 years now, I believe 6 or 7 years. So my background, I was an elementary teacher for 7 years. And while I was doing that, I started selling digital downloads of lesson plans and activities for teachers through my business Learning with Miss LeGros. My maiden name is LeGros. That is where that comes from. And over the years, it's really grown into a great business. I love doing. It still gives me that fulfillment I miss from the traditional classroom, but I get to run my own business and help teachers now in the upper elementary niche. So I create digital downloads primarily, but I've also done some freelance professional development virtually as well.
That's amazing. Okay, so you're really like doing this and dog fooding your own stuff, the content and the community, and which is the best way to, I guess, build a community.
It really is. And I know when SPI was looking for someone to build out the All Access Pass, they were looking for not just someone who was already in community or in the traditional sense, but they wanted someone with more of an education background since it was going to be a learning community. But what made me stood out is I also had the entrepreneurial knowledge, so I could really relate to the members. So I think it's really important for anyone in the community world to have a personal attachment to the actual mission and niche of the community.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with this. And yeah, this is something that I didn't have in mind when I was preparing the outline for this interview, but yeah, this makes so much more sense now. And I'm even more excited about the questions that are to come. Okay, so you mentioned that you transitioned from being a primary school teacher to the community building space in the tech world. So that is a wild transition, and I want to talk to you about that. Tell us the story.
Yes. Wow. So, like I said, I was an elementary school teacher for 7 years. I taught third and fourth grade here in the US and loved a lot about it, but I was ready for a career change. And so, one thing I actually did is I bought a course from a creator that was all for like transitioning teachers, teachers who were thinking about a career change. And it came with a community. So, that was my first taste of actual community in the sense that we know it and everybody listening knows it, and not just like a Facebook group or something like that, you know? And so that was my first taste of it. And I was looking for roles primarily. I had never heard of community management. I had never heard of community building in this sense. And so I was primarily looking in those smaller boxes that I feel like traditional teachers feel they have to fit into if they're going to a new career. So I was looking into curriculum development and professional development for teachers, working for a K-12 ed tech company. And I actually had the founder and instructor of the course I started taking messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm a member of a really cool community called SPI Pro. And they thought I might have a good lead on someone who would be great to work for them. Here's the job description. Here's why they think a teacher would be great. And the more I started looking at it, I really thought this uses a lot of the skills that I have and allows me to do something I wouldn't have considered before. And so their job description specifically was I was going to help create a brand new community that was learning centered. And so I was like, you know what? This sounds pretty great. I'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. And I interviewed with Team SPI, and the rest is history. It was a really great cultural fit for me. The culture of the company was really great. Made a really good connection with my then director. And I've been at SPI for over 2 years now. And I think it sounds like a non-traditional transition. But what I love about community is like community in this sense, like in the digital traditional community sense, didn't exist even like 10 or so years ago. And so it's like, what really is a traditional path for it? And I think teachers are a really good fit, especially for those more learning transformative communities, because we have those facilitation skills, we have those curriculum and instruction skills. We have the skills to individualize how we approach different members. I could go on and on about why teachers make great community managers and builders, but that's a little about my
Yeah.
journey, and I'm excited it led to where it has.
Yeah, I love this. And I want to pull on this thread again a little bit more about how teachers make really good community builders. The one contrast that I'm thinking from your teaching experience and your experience in community at SPI is that when you were teaching, you were teaching little kids. And then right now you're teaching adults who have a professional career or who are busy. So tell me about the things that can translate across these very different age groups.
So I'll start with a very quick story. I remember, I believe it was my first interview. She asked about all my experiences, and she's like, well, how do you think teaching prepares you? And at one point I said, I'll be very honest. I'm used to teaching 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And I feel like running a community of like business owners and adults is going to be very different. And I remember the person that became my manager said, I think you're going to realize it's very, very similar. And I said, okay, like it is. It's very similar.
Okay.
I use almost all of my teaching skills, like the transferable skills still. I think so like I said, facilitation skills, especially for live events. I facilitate live events, I plan live events. Teachers lesson plan, they have to plan their entire day. They are, like I mentioned, individual needs is a huge thing that teachers do every day. So I, as a traditional teacher, I had the needs of 24 students. They're all individuals. I knew how to approach every one of them. I knew conflict resolution, how to cater what I was teaching to make that like light bulb moment go off for them. And members are the same way. Like they're coming from all different walks of life. They're all different ages, all different places in their business. And so I'm using that background that I had as a teacher to know how exactly to talk to them and what to recommend to help them grow. So that is very similar. I would say the biggest difference, which you didn't ask about, but I always find it
Yes.
really interesting because people are like, okay, well, how's it different? Obviously, there's like the very like physical ways it's different. I'm on a computer all day. The biggest difference is how kids and adults are motivated. They're motivated differently. And
Mhm.
so kids in general are very extrinsically motivated. So they want to know like, okay, what's in it for me? Like, what am I going to get because of this? Like, give me a reward, like good grades, that kind of thing. Adults tend to be more intrinsically motivated. And especially when people are joining a community and like going through a cohort experience or something, they need to see the purpose. They need to see why they are in it for them, where they want to be at the end, and that this community can help get them there. So the biggest thing that has changed about how I approach like teaching situations in a learning based community is I'm constantly connecting the members' experiences, prompting them to think about a time in their business journey when they did XYZ. How can this skill relate to it? I do a lot of like workbooks and exercises and prompting to help them actually see the value and how it will directly tie to them in their business. I would say that's the biggest difference.
Hmm. This is So fascinating. I love this that we
Yeah.
were able to pull on this tangent a little bit.
Yeah, I love it.
Amazing. And let's talk about your tools and your actual work environment. So can you share your screen and show us, like listeners would love to see what you're working in all day and what are the tools that you're using?
Sure, absolutely. So I will share a little bit. I'll share my
Sure.
screen. I'm going to hide some things, but all of my tabs are up just for privacy reasons for SPI sake.
Yeah.
But you can see all my tabs on the top. This
Yeah.
tends to be what I have open a lot and use a lot. So this is our
Got it.
actual community. I'm in the community constantly. So while I do have a big role in shaping the community and a lot of the strategy things, I'm our community manager as well. So I'm always in our community. Over here is our pro community. So pro is essentially like a higher tier community. So they all get access to the all access community. And so I'm in pro quite a bit to help. I'm starting to do a lot more of the shaping of the programming in pro and the learning experiences. And then also the Circle community itself. So our community runs with Circle. So I am in the Circle community, and it's even up here. Like I'm in the Circle community all the time because I feel that is a big place I grow as a community manager. Just seeing all the different ways that people are using Circle's tools. I love to contribute and help out. I'm actually one of Circle's expert contributors right now where I get to help teach. I just did an event for them on a panel about transformative communities. So I go here a lot. I'm in Circle's community at least once a day, just reading and learning. Also, it's not up here, but LinkedIn, very similarly. I like to read on LinkedIn and contribute to posts, post my own thoughts, and grow in that way. So we use Monday.com for our project management for SPI. So that's just how I plan out my work status. We use Zoom a lot for our live events. So even though Circle has a live event feature, our community is very large and has very special needs. So we still do tend to use Zoom a lot for those. My
Hmm.
Google Drive up here, I'm a big Google Drive user. A lot of people in SPI use Notion for things, and our databases in Notion, our knowledge base. But I can't transition out of my Google Drive all the way. I love Google, the Google Suite. So a lot of my brain dumps and things go into Google Docs. Canva. So we are a small team. So I help out a lot with the design for community elements. So I use Canva a lot for that. And then
Nice.
ConvertKit is our email service provider. I use ConvertKit mainly for the weekly newsletters. I type up custom newsletters that just kind of talk about what's happening in the community to all of our members every Wednesday. That's what I did right before recording this. And then just any special campaigns I can help with our onboarding emails for the community and go through ConvertKit as well. And then I would say the other tool, which I can't show you obviously, is our
Yeah.
Slack. So we use
Yeah.
Slack for internal communication. So I'm on that a lot. Obviously, there's other small tools we use in websites. Those are the main ones. I mean, we use like our payment processing. I have to go in to check on member cancellations and issues. We use Stripe. So I'm in that a lot. Typeform, I guess, is another one. I make a lot of surveys and forms. And so go in there. And then we also use Zapier for a lot of our
Yeah.
more advanced workflows with Circle and ConvertKit and everything talking together. So
Hmm.
those are my big tools I would say I use on a daily basis. Love them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is great. And so cool that, you could share what you are using because I feel like sometimes people don't know which tools that professionals use versus what other tools that I can use. So all of these tools that you just mentioned, the great thing is that all of these tools are really democratized. Like anybody who's just starting out can also start to use those tools. And that's the beauty of this segment.
Yeah, and you don't need to. I think one of the biggest things, especially with entrepreneurs starting communities, is it's really easy to have shiny object syndrome. It's really easy to look at something the big creators are using and paying for and knowing it's not in your budget. And so, like, even though like SPI, we do have access to tools, like I said, we pay for Notion. I still love my Google Docs, and that's how I work best. And so I put things in Notion when I need to for community or for company-wide facing things, but like I'm still going to go do something in a Google Doc. I'm still going to, like, Zoom has a free version, ConvertKit you can start for free, all of that different things. So I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Absolutely, I love this. And okay, so is there any interesting workflow that you've created in Zapier to help with the community stuff?
Oh goodness, there's a lot. We
Okay.
have moved a lot of like the more community facing workflows, I think, into circle workflows. They have come a long way and they're constantly adding things. They came out with an update yesterday where they added like in a delays feature. So I can have something go at a custom delay, like delay a week, delay 2 weeks, which is super helpful. So we might be able to move some stuff out of Zapier. I would say a couple of the big things I use Zapier for a lot is I run cohorts. So we call them accelerators. And so what I do is I create a type form. So I create a sign up form. And then what Zapier does is, okay, if they filled out the form, it's going to grab their email that they put in the form. And I specify in the form, it has to be the email you use within our community, our circle community. And then it adds them to two specific spaces that are accelerator related. And then you can have Zapier do it, or now I have Circle Workflows do it. Just when they're added to that specific space, they get a direct message from me explaining more information on where to start. So I would say
Nice.
that's what I use a lot. I would say the other ones are just like different onboarding things. So I kind of explained one we were going to look at, but right now members get direct messages from me after they've been in the community 2 weeks, and it looks at two different things. If they've completed our new member challenge, they get a direct message from me reminding them to do the new member challenge and why. And if they've already completed the new member challenge, it's mainly just a check-in from me with a couple questions, reminding them that I'm here to help. So that's a couple different ways I use it on the community side.
Hmm. And when you say direct message from you, then that means that their replies also come to your inbox, right?
It does. And we are, I think, a big misconception about SPI is we're a very well-known company, especially with Pat Flynn starting it. He's incredible. And we have a very small team. I believe full-time right now we have 9 people, 8 or 9,
Whoa.
and we have 2 on the community team. There's me and one other. And so I wear a lot of hats currently. And so it can get overwhelming, but I think one thing I've learned over the course of my couple years in community is I have learned just little things to make my life easier. And so one thing that they learn in their onboarding is how my notifications are set. I said, if you want me to see a specific comment, you need to tag me. If
Hmm.
you, when I send out community-wide direct message or the automated DMs, I say, no need to reply to this. This is an automated message. Or
Hmm.
only reply like if you have a question or something like that. And so I try to make them sound personable, which I think they do, and people appreciate that. But they also need to know that I am one human managing 1,200 people. And so I've had to find ways to really make that doable for me. And I've also like just fit it into my routine as well. So the very first thing I do every day is I check my messages. And so I look at all my messages, I reply to any that need replied to, I check my email, and I feel like I've gotten less messages over time because I've learned how to be proactive and learn like I'm paying attention to what people are messaging about, like if there's a common issue or something that could be solved in onboarding or our new member challenge, and I'll put it there, which prevents a lot of like help messages too, which I think
Hmm.
has been super helpful.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, so you mentioned you're one person managing 1,200 community members and doing all of these things, which is
Yes.
incredible. And I'm now even more curious to learn about what your work week looks like. So how about we play a little game that I call
Okay.
routine roulette? Okay, here's how it goes.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll tell you one time of the week, and you tell me on a typical week, what might you be doing during that time?
Okay.
Okay, let's start with Monday. What are you typically doing at 9 a.m. on a Monday?
So Mondays, we always have a team meeting, like a small team meeting. So I always meet with my community counterpart and then a manager at the company that kind of just oversees the operations of our team. I'm always meeting with them. We sometimes have a company-wide meeting if there's like important business updates. Other than that, like 9 a.m., I'm typically checking, like I said, checking my messages. I'm checking my email. And then I'm scrolling through the community to see what I missed over the weekend because I'm not on Friday through Sunday. We work a 4-day work week, which is also some insight too. So 9 a.m., probably checking my messages.
Nice. Okay. All right, let's move to Tuesday. What are you doing 12 noon on a Tuesday?
Tuesdays are very meeting and event heavy for me. Noon on a Tuesday, I'm probably eating because I always block out time to eat lunch or else I'm going to be cranky. But right before that, every other week, we have our community marketing huddle because of so much of what we do with community overlaps with what marketing needs to know. So every other week, we meet with them to fill them in on the biggest happenings in the community. They talk about campaigns, what they can use for different marketing campaigns, and how to position things. So probably that meeting or eating.
Nice. And then you mentioned that Tuesdays are meeting heavy. So do you typically try to schedule your community events on Tuesdays as well?
That's what I've started doing, especially like I work from home, like just probably about almost anybody else in community. And so I try, especially Tuesdays, I'm like, okay, I need to be pretty camera ready on Tuesdays. And so I try to stack it. So Tuesdays, I'm probably not getting a lot of like personal work or projects done, but I know I'm having my internal meetings. And I also tend to schedule our cohort meetings for accelerators on those days. And especially as much consistency as possible for the members is really good too. So if it's a Tuesday, they know there's probably an accelerator meeting if they're in one.
Got it. It's amazing. Okay. Now moving on to Wednesday, let's say 3 p.m. What are you doing?
I'm probably working on a project. Wednesdays, I try to keep free of meetings. And a lot of the company actually does that. We block out Wednesdays on our calendars as focus time. I will use Wednesday as like a backup option for a meeting. Like I needed to reschedule a meeting Tuesday. And so we bumped it to Wednesday, and that's okay. But Wednesday, I try to have open just as like heavy project time. I've also learned just like how I work really well. And Wednesday is like a good time of week. Okay, I've had a couple days to get in the swing of things. My mind is in community mode. I can really crank out these projects. And I still have the next day, because we work a 4-day work week, I have the next day to finish anything and follow up with people before the weekend.
And when you say big projects, you mean things like maybe creating a new course or creating a new curriculum, things like that.
Yes, creating a course. We are revamping a program that we have over in SPI Pro that I'm helping with right now. So really anything that takes like big time, like not just like managing the community and replying to people and making posts, I tend to do
Yeah,
on Wednesdays.
lovely. And finally, Thursday. So let's say Thursday, 4 p.m. What are you doing?
Thursday, 4 p.m., I tend to be clocking out,
Yeah.
but I tend to work. What's really nice is we have a pretty flexible schedule. And so I can kind of log in when I need to, as long as it's by, I think it's 10 a.m. local time. And so I tend to work 8 to 4 or maybe 8:30 to 4:30. So I would say 4 p.m. Honestly, probably not clocking out quite yet. On a Thursday, I'm just making sure everything is ready to go for the weekend. So I'm being as proactive as possible with any member issues. I'm making sure, especially for cohorts, I still have check-ins on Fridays that are asynchronous. And so I want to make sure those are scheduled. I want to make sure all of my Monday morning posts are scheduled and ready to go. So I don't have to actually like get on first thing Monday and type a post. It's already ready. And then just going through my messages and ensuring all member issues are dealt with and all my messages are replied to.
Amazing. Yeah, that's the game.
Easy.
Yeah, this was
Perfect.
perfect. But
Woo. Awesome.
well, it was really interesting to see how you're stacking your week and what it looks like to be managing the community on a day-to-day basis. So
Mhm.
thank you for indulging me in this.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to move to this segment which I call mini masterclass. And you specifically, I feel you have immense experience on building community as a course creator. You're an expert at sprinkling community elements in existing courses that turn them into transformational experiences. So
Yeah.
I want to do a segment on this subject because a lot of the listeners and people who are tuning into this, they've probably got an on-demand course or something of that sort, and that they're looking to uh, turn into a community experience. And this segment will be helpful for them.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So talk about the live accelerators that you run, because those are really interesting and not something that I've seen any other community do.
Ooh, okay. Yes. So we call them accelerators. They're essentially what I call hybrid cohorts. And so one thing that they were seeing at SPI before I came on is they tried more traditional live teaching. It was you had to get on Zoom at the same time every day. It wasn't working great because they couldn't reach as many people. There were very few
Hmm.
people that could meet at those times. Live cohorts, completely live cohorts with live teaching are also expensive because it takes more resources from you.
Yeah.
And they should be more expensive if you are live teaching and it's completely live. And so we needed to find a solution that worked. It still gave enough support and gave more enrichment and opportunities than just like a standalone course would, but we needed to make it accessible no matter where in the world you live. And so I created accelerators, and we've had, gosh, I would say 15 or so since I've started. And so I've definitely learned along the way. So what it is we will go through typically a course or a mini course together, and I piece it out. So I'll open a course. So for example, I will use our course YouTube from scratch. That is an accelerator I'm running right now. So it's on my mind. So I will look at the YouTube from scratch course that was created not by me at the time. It was created very shortly after I joined the team. And so I go through it and I think about what our members could handle in 1 week. And so I also want the workload to be manageable because our members are beginning business owners or aspiring business owners who might even work a full-time job during the day and not be able to do this until like nighttime. And so I try to have no more than I would say like about 3 hours of work a week, maybe a little
Hmm.
less, a little more. And I've kind of learned that's a sweet spot. And so I try to break down the course curriculum. So, like, okay, you're doing module 1 this week. Next week, you're doing module 2 and half of module 3, or whatever it is. And I make a schedule. I also have learned, big pro tip for anyone who wants to try this, a catch up week is really great and really appreciated by people because life happens. And so in the middle where it makes sense, so like in our YouTube from scratch course, they're going to get a catch up week right after they learn how to film and edit videos, because that's a hefty module. Those are hefty modules. And some people, especially we're in the summer right now when we're recording this. And so a lot of people are busier in the summer. They have family vacations. They are watching their kids at home and they might not have during the school year. And so they might honestly just need that catch up week to catch up. They might need that week to take a break, or they might need that week to actually perfect what they've done and go back and perfect their editing or perfect their channel branding or whatever it might be. How we actually run those. So they have specific content they should be hitting each week. What we do is every Monday, there is a post from me that is scheduled, and it tells them what they need to do for the week. Tuesdays, there is an optional live meeting. And so they are recorded for replay. I tend to rotate times to hit different sides of the world and different schedules. And so we have a lot of members in Europe and we have a lot of members in Australia. And so I try to go morning, afternoon, because it will hit Europe's evening and then it will hit Australia's morning. And so everybody has an opportunity to join live. And what happens is it's an office hour style session. For most of our courses, I am not the subject expert. So I bring in
Hmm.
people who are. So
Hmm.
that has been really fun. So for our YouTube from scratch course, I have, I believe, 6 different people that are experts in the area. And so what I do is people I think that could be good, I send them out a survey like, hey, if you're interested in this, take this. And they also like, what topics are you really knowledgeable about? And so if someone is really knowledgeable, like we have a professional like video editor, I'm not going to use him until the editing module. And so people can come in, the students can come in, they can ask questions. It's facilitated by me. I'm there to field questions, but it's really all the subject matter expert, the people with the experience. And then the people who can't attend live, there's a replay, but then also within that event in the community, they can ask questions ahead of time. And so I can ask them for them. The really great thing with these two is, especially later in the courses, they can share their screen. We can workshop through things. The whole cohort can give their input. So that's Tuesdays. That is one element that really makes accelerators unique. And it also just pacing it that way. Everybody's going through the same thing at the same time. And then Every Thursday in our community in general, so this isn't accelerator specific, Pat Flynn holds office hours. And so just if they want another chance to ask the instructor a question, they can. They're a little more general. And so it's not just YouTube, it could be anything. And then Fridays is an asynchronous check-in. So it's a post from me saying, hey, anytime before Monday, come to this post and answer these 2 questions. It always asks them, where are they in the content? So are they up to where they should be? And then it'll ask them something about what they did that week. So for example, right now in the content, they are working on building their like just initial channel pages and branding for YouTube. Okay, so it's going to ask them a question about their channel name, or it's going to say, ask about their branding feel, or what playlist did you put first on your channel page and why? And people, like I came back after week 1 and there were 100 comments on the check-in post.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, so it's still working even when I'm gone. And then if for some reason they have a question, they tag me in and I help them out. But that's an accelerator. We also always kick off with like a kickoff social. And so the week before it starts, I have like curated breakout rooms that we do. They get to meet people who are in similar places with YouTube, with in similar niches and similar places around the world, and really make meaningful connections. So that is the gist of an accelerator.
I love this. This is so fascinating. So you're basically taking an on-demand course and breaking it, like putting it on a calendar. Like, okay, this week you have to do this. Like giving people essentially like homeworks. So you have to do this week, very much like a school teacher. And then in order to turn that into a community experience, you have basically 2 key things. One is the office hours, the weekly office hours. And then the second is the breakout socials that you organize before a cohort. So those help members make this into a social thing and give it a like make it more than just watching videos on demand with a calendar.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing that really adds a special community element is people who go through accelerators are put into private spaces. And so, yes, they have
Mhm.
full community access, but they also have an accelerator space access. So, everybody in our YouTube one has one called YouTube 2024. And
Mhm.
so what they do is they have access to that space. They also have the ability to, like, if they ever want feedback on something, they can post like, hey, group, like, what do you think about my channel page? Or what do you think about my first video or my title? And people will chime in because they want to help each other too.
Yeah.
And so they can post at any time. In the check-ins too, in the post, I say, I encourage people to reply to others that they have questions for or something. So if someone says, I did XYZ with my channel page, there might be 2 comments to that reply saying, hey, like, how did you do that? Like, how did you get to that? Or that's a really cool idea. And so there's still that community element too. So I try to have live interaction, but I also try to have asynchronous interaction too.
That is genius. And do you just keep these accelerator channels alive during the course of the accelerator, like before and after they're closed until, yeah, what's the cadence?
So what I do, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do this, I have kept them forever for the
Hmm.
lifetime of the community, because I think that's also kind of a pushing factor for people to finish. I go through every couple weeks, and the only mandatory element of the accelerator is you reply to that check-in once a week and answer the questions. So that helps keep them moving along. Somebody once called it positive peer pressure because they want their classmates to see that they're still moving. They want to be able to talk to their classmates about what they're doing. And so they keep moving along. And if for some reason, like if someone signs up for the accelerator and they just don't ever reply to anything, I don't see them at meetings, I remove them from the group because I can tell you're not using the accelerator experience. And so that's also just kind of a motivating factor. And then, of course, if someone messages me and is like, hey, I don't see it anymore, like we'll have a chat, like, okay, like what's going on? Like, do you need any support from me? And I'll put them back in if that's what they want. If they complete the whole accelerator, I keep them in there because they still have that group of people they've gotten to know for 2, sometimes 3 months, and they can go back to that small group and share something or ask a question. I've thought about recently, just because some of our first accelerators have like no activity in those spaces, I might archive those. But right now, it doesn't clutter up their space, it clutters up mine. So I have like the list of 30 different spaces, but they don't see that. They only see the ones that they've actively participated in.
I think the key here is to remove people who aren't participating in the accelerator. And although that might seem like a counterintuitive advice, I can understand why it would be a motivating factor in improving the outcomes of the accelerator, like getting people to actually complete the accelerator.
I think, yeah, and there's no, like I said, this is something I completely just came up with on my
Yeah.
own. There's no right or wrong way because initially it's like, ooh, you remove people if they don't reply within 2 or 3 weeks. And like, yeah, I do. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Like you said, it's a big motivation factor. Another thing, just candidly on my end, it helps give us data on what percentage
Mhm.
actually finish an accelerator
Mhm.
because they have access to the exact same course the entire community does. So it's really hard to pull analytics. And we want to keep track of what percentage actually finish Accelerator. And so it's really easy for me to write down a number at the beginning and a number at the end, and then do the
Mhm.
percentage that way. And it's a lot easier to track if I can just keep up on it. Like, very candidly, I think there's 152 people in the YouTube Accelerator. And
This is
so
amazing.
yeah, I
Like, yeah,
can't
out
go,
of the
yeah.
1,200 people, you have 152 signing up for
Yeah,
this accelerator.
yeah, and so I can't go through just with just me go through every single week and be like, okay, well, Bob showed up to the week 1 meeting. I'm gonna give him a check mark. No, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and I use filters to my advantage. And so I'll filter, okay, who has been logged out for over 2 weeks? Okay, and who's in this space? All right, let's look and see what they commented on. So I'll do that. And then obviously, since I'm the facilitator of the meetings too, I just get to know people throughout the live sessions. And so if for some reason somebody didn't reply for 2 weeks, but I know they were participating on the call, I might just message them and be like, hey, remember to check in. That's it.
Mm.
So I think that's how I use it. And that's why it's beneficial on my end to do that. I was nervous to do that at first. I'm like, that seems really harsh to remove people, but I've had zero pushback from any members, and I've done them for a year and a half now. And I think it's honestly because a lot of the people I removed, they signed up because it sounded fun and it just wasn't a priority anymore. Or
Mm.
maybe I'm sure there's a few people that don't understand that the accelerator is different from just the standalone course and they just wanted to do the standalone course. And that's okay too.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I love this. And I also want to touch upon the what goes in before you start an accelerator. So you have to decide a topic for the accelerator
Mhm.
and you like, yeah, tell me how do you decide which accelerator to run next? And yeah, maybe if there's anything else that you need to do in order to prep essentially for the accelerator before it begins.
So, to decide topics, this is kind of twofold. So, how I decide topics is I, number one, just listen to the community. I get messages sometimes like, hey, Ashley, when are we running the next YouTube accelerator? Like, those are, I'm like, oh, okay, there's interest in a YouTube. I think about what we've done recently. So, for example, we just finished not long ago our Heroic Online Courses Accelerator. So, how to launch your own online course. I'm probably not going to do that at least earliest until like the end of the year because I
Mm.
don't want to keep offering the same experience when the majority of the members in the community are still the same. So, I want to be sure I'm always advocating for our members and ensuring they have experiences that are going to serve them. I do a quarterly content survey. And so in that survey, I always just candidly ask them out of this list, like, are you interested in an accelerator? And if it's yes, okay, which would you like to see? And so I look at those. And so I try to look at what the community wants and needs. On the flip side, about half of our accelerators are decided by our marketing team. So, with my
Mm.
input, they can look. So, for example, we've run YouTube 4 times. We've run it on average twice a year because we tend to get a lot of new members when we market the YouTube accelerator. And so we see what the external audience wants and not just our community. And so, for example, YouTube, while we haven't done it in a while, and obviously it's always popular in the community, I know some of our community members have already done it. And so I want to make sure the next one we do, which is launching this week, it's our A to Z webinars course. This was the highest rated by the community, and it's one we've never done before. And so, okay, let's try it out and serve our current community members.
Mm. Yeah, I love this. And I think this concept of using accelerators, like creating accelerators out of your existing content, is such a high potential things for creators because, as you mentioned, there's this trend of starting cohort-based courses. But time and again, what I keep hearing from people who have ran cohort-based courses is that it just burns them out because they get tired of teaching the same thing again and again. So this
Um,
model is hitting all the right spots, like the sweet spots of both online, on demand, and cohort-based experiences.
Yeah, live cohorts, I feel like can burn people out, like you said, so quickly. And especially a lot of people who run communities are solopreneurs, maybe with a couple contractors, but it's like you're a one-man team. And so you need to learn to balance that. And the other flip side, like I said, is when we did completely live cohorts, yeah, they were really expensive, but we didn't have many people take them. And so when we make the lift lower for ourselves and essentially work smarter, not harder, we're getting, yes, it's a lower price point, but we're getting a lot more people. And those are a lot more people that can be continued members and
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're also getting more people, like you're able to basically serve more people, not just based on your capacity, but also because it's on demand, essentially. So people can go through the
Mhm.
course like asynchronously, essentially.
Yeah. And so we always want to have different options. And so I tell people all the time, especially when we're about to start an accelerator, people will say, oh, I really want to do the webinars accelerator because you're doing it right now, but I don't know if I can do it that quickly or if it's a priority for me. And I always just say, that's okay. Like it's always in the community. We have an actual space in the community where it's called Find a Friend, where people can go and say, hey, I want to take this course, but I would really love an accountability partner. Is there anybody else who wants to take this course with me? So that is
Hmm.
another route people can go and have done before. I had a group of, I think it was 5 women do their own YouTube accelerator because I wasn't offering it at
Nice.
the time. And they finished and they have YouTube channels, which is awesome. And so, yeah, there it's really a choose your own adventure. And I try to make that known in our onboarding. There are different ways to learn. Everybody learns differently. Everybody has different schedules. Use this community in a way that makes sense for you. And I try to have such a diversity of offerings in there that everybody can find something that's going to work for them.
I love this, the fact that these people were able to find each other in the community and start their own cohort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this happening just over chat, like somebody posts and then other people see it? Yeah.
Yes. So there's a dedicated space called Find a Friend, and the pinned post at the top explains how to use it. It's mainly just to find accountability partners, form their own accountability groups, find people to take a course alongside, because that's one thing our community doesn't offer is masterminds, because we
Mhm.
reserve that for our higher tier community. And so they can
Right.
essentially do it themselves if that's something they want.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And you also reuse the existing recordings to create like another type of course, like you were talking about on the video. Can you just show me what that looks like and describe that to people? Because that is also something really novel.
Yes. So, one thing I was running into is obviously we want new courses, we want new content, but I don't have the bandwidth to do that with such a small company. Pat Flynn has recorded most of our courses in the past, and he has a lot on his plate. Like, he's not going to just record courses all the time. And so I had to figure out a way to create new course like content using what I already had. And so I developed what I have deemed a pathway. Like I believe I mentioned at the beginning, with us being a learning community, we have workshops all the time. We have a weekly workshop led by either an industry expert, a lot of the time it's members who are experts in certain areas. So like if we have a member, or I try to go to our SPI Pro members first, like it's a perk of being a pro. They run a digital marketing agency, let's say. Okay, you are perfect to do a workshop on email marketing or copywriting or whatever it is. And so they will do an event, just an hour long. I try to have one a week or so within the community, and they're available for replay at any time within our event library. And it is organized by topic.
And
But
once again, before I want to interrupt because this is also interesting that you're able to get member-led workshops every week. That is like the golden nugget there. Let you just pass over that information because
yeah,
a lot of community creators struggle to get to a place where they're able to have the community essentially teach each other. Because,
yeah.
yeah, that is great. So, how do you do that? Like, do you have a form where people just nominate themselves? How does that happen?
It's kind of twofold. So originally I did, so here, the evolution of it. So I started out with a form like, hey, do you want to run an event? Okay, tell me your ideas. It is now turned into for like there's a form and it has my needs. Okay, I'm looking to run where I would love to run workshops this quarter on these topics. Can you
Mm.
teach on any of these topics? And so I see what we have in-house with our members for free because we don't pay people to do internal events. And so one way I really market it to the members is it's essentially an evergreen lead magnet for their own business. And so this is also something that is unique to our community because we're an entrepreneurial community. And so it's entrepreneurs teaching entrepreneurs. And so like that example I gave with a digital marketing business, for example, that person can lead just a short workshop and it can even be as short as 30 minutes and then they just do Q&A the rest of the time. But then at the end they're like, okay, this is my website where you can find me. I also have a free download. You can go get it here. And so I let them do just like a lead magnet or something if they would like, and it just lives in our library. And so I think doing it as that, I would say I also have more success because it can also be frustrating sometimes, even to some of our members, because they're like, I can help with this, I can help with this. But if it's not something that's in demand with the community, I don't want to waste their time. And I also want to serve our community the best I can. And so, for example, this is actually the first time I've ever done this and it was successful. I wanted an event on a certain topic and I was just searching the community and I couldn't find anybody that I knew was like a real expert in that topic. And I'll do that a lot of times. If I want a topic and nobody's put it on the form, I'll ask the other community manager, hey, do you know anybody that would be good for this? And I'll message them directly. And most of the time the answer is yes. There are some no's and that's okay. But there was a topic I want to teach on still. And so it was yesterday. I'm like, you know what? A lot of these people are on social media. And so I'm an Instagram user. I'm a big Instagram user. And so I typed in, so I wanted a workshop just very transparently on launch strategy. So you want to launch a course, you want to launch a community, you want to launch a coaching cohort. And so I searched launch strategist and I just looked through people on Instagram and I found one that her content was really good. She was very active still. She had a good teaching style in her videos. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to message her. And so I messaged her and she said, oh my gosh, I would love to. I love SPI and Pat Flynn. I actually met him at a conference, blah, blah, blah. And I emailed her this morning with details and she's going to do a workshop for us. And
That's
so it's
amazing.
just just seeking out the right people helps a lot. And I think yes, it also helps too. I'm sure it's frustrating to smaller community owners because it can be hard to be like, oh, well, I have 50 people in my community and I want you to lead a free event. Like that's a little harder, but really figuring out how to position it. Um, but even in like communities that are more like interest-based or support-based, I think a lot of the members want to help each other grow too. And so just trying to do that as well. But that's mainly how I find people. There are times like summer is a lot harder right now to find people because everyone's so busy. And so one thing I have found that our members really like is occasional networking with one another and just making connections. And so I'm like, you know what? I still need August events. I have none lined up. We're going to do a networking event because I try not to
Mm,
do them too often because I
mhm.
started doing them monthly and not many people came because they're like, oh, it's just another networking event. I'll catch the next one. So I
Right.
make them a little more novel. And so I'm like, hey, here's our quarterly networking event. And I already have a lot of RSVPs. And so
Mm.
figuring out like low lift events too is really nice. Open Q&As are really easy to do. Yesterday we had we have an experts in residence program, and he's the editor in chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, and he's written a book. And so I said,
Wow.
hey, we I know a workshop is probably like, you don't probably have the time for that. He's like, yeah, no, I don't. I'm like, but people really want to learn how to write a book. Will you do an open Q&A for an hour? He's like, oh yeah, there's no lift on his part. It's just an hour on his calendar. He doesn't have to think about it ahead of time. Q&As and panels are really, really great for that. So that's a great place to start where your members are still going to get value. They can submit questions ahead of time if they can't come live. So that is one I resort to if I'm like, okay, I can't find someone to do a workshop. So they're not all technically workshop style, they're more learning events, but I have at least 2 to 3 workshop style a month, I would say.
I love this. Okay. So I know I took us on a tangent by interrupting you when you were talking
Oh, you're
about how
fine.
you're stitching together courses, but this was so worth it. Like this is something that a lot of, I know so many communities need. And yeah, your strategies are really practical and that's something that other people can also apply. So thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, and let's get back to how you're stitching them together into new
Yes.
courses.
Yes. So with all of those events, especially the workshop style ones and the higher level Q&A ones, like I put them for replay in the community in a very organized way. So people can find those at any time. And there's also the logic-based quiz I made where it will suggest, oh, look at these events. It looks like you need help building a website. Check out these workshops or whatever it might be. But there's some people that just really like the experience of a course, and I don't blame them. I like a good starting point. I like a good ending point. I like support materials, all that sort of thing. And so what I did is looking at what the community needed, looking at our gaps. I'll use the very first one I did a few months ago, for example. So we have a course called Email Marketing Magic. It is an introductory email marketing course. But then what? Like, what do they do after they have their email list? And I realized I'm like, we've had just events here and there on different like email funnels and crafting the best emails and newsletters and all of this stuff that I went back and I found the best, the ones that I feel cover really crucial topics for more like intermediate email content. And I watched each one of them. I found like, and this is also like part of what makes like a learning and a teaching background so great is I found like natural stopping points where it starts talking about a new topic. And I like would cut up the workshop that they did into small chunks. Those are your lessons. And so, for example, I'm doing one on community right now. And so what I just did last week is there was a lesson on engagement, like how to engage your community was a workshop. And so I went through and it said like how to like different problems with engagement. So it'll be like no one's coming to events or no one's replying to posts. And so I would cut up that. Okay, here's the next lesson. And so I take each topic, I put it in an order that makes sense. You're also cutting out that like filler banter that events naturally have. You're cutting out the just random questions. And I'm putting them in an order that makes sense to get them to the end goal of leveling up their email game is what it essentially is. And then I go a little further. Once again, this is where my background comes in handy. I made a workbook that goes along with it. And so I think after every time I make a lesson, so like a small chunk of a video, okay, what is something that the student or the viewer, the member, whatever you want to refer to them as, should get from this? And so, for example, if I'm doing a lesson on, so we're talking about email. So if I did a lesson on lead magnets, so like what makes a good lead magnet, I have them brainstorm 3 different potential lead magnets, like on the paper. What is your current lead magnet? How can you make it better? Or something like that. So the workbook isn't just like define this or something like that. It's actually like tying it and making it applicable to their own business and making it meaningful and stuff like that. And even if you don't make a workbook, just a pro tip is to always have like action items or things to think about so they're actively learning and they're engaged. And so what it does is, so I cut up all those events. So like the last one I did is from 3 different events, 3 different workshops. And they are module 1, module 2, and module 3. And it's set up like a mini course. It's like 2 hours worth of content. And we got to market it essentially as a new mini course. And I approached also the people that did the workshop, like, hey, we're just repurposing this in a new way. And they're all for it because it's more promotion for them. Like we put a little biography at the end of every lesson on them as well. And so we did that. And we even did an accelerator on the last one I did too. And so it was just really cool. And it's, yeah, just people learning how to use the content they already have and repurposing it in new ways is really, really powerful.
I love this. This is, yeah, your strategies and the things that you're employing, they're so like, they just I just feel like just copying them and pasting them into any community that I come across, you know. So they're
Yeah.
so, powerful. Like for example, you just mentioned workbook, like the simple idea of stitching up content from different workshops that you've done, but also adding a workbook to them so that people have like it becomes essentially a transformational journey for them.
Yes.
So Yeah, I can really like this workbook concept makes it just solidifies this strategy.
Yeah, I agree because it's just one thing I know from just my own background in teaching and learning theory and stuff is people need to be actively engaged. They need to, like I said earlier, be intrinsically motivated. They need to constantly connect it to their own experience. And a workbook is a really easy way to do that. And so if you're already creating courses or mini courses, and at the end of every lesson, you're putting a question to think about or a reflection question, it's also really easy to copy and paste that question into a Canva template and just make it into a digital workbook for people.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, I love this. And yeah, maybe we can put like in the show notes some of the workbook, like an example of a workbook that
Sure.
you've created. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
people have an idea, yeah, of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay,
Happy to do that.
perfect. Awesome. Okay, and tell me, why are you so into surveys?
Oh my goodness. I laugh because I really love to make a survey. I love to make a form. Um, because I feel like that is the easiest way to get into the mind of members. And so we're always like constantly like at SPI, we'll have a meeting like, okay, but what kinds of events can we try? What do they actually want? I don't know, ask them. Like, let's ask them. And so at the very least, I like to do a quarterly survey and I try to think of just anything I might want to know for the next quarter content wise. So I ask, what topics are you interested in? Is there anything you feel is lacking? Like, what is your experience with XYZ? Anything to get into the minds of our community members, because that's going to drive the direction of our community for our existing members because it's my job as the community manager. And so this is a little different for those solopreneurs and people who are running the community independently because they also want to market it to new members. My job and my number one priority is always our current members. And so I'm using those surveys to get into their minds. And also, I feel like surveys also just show how much you care about the members and you want their voices to be heard. Because there's nothing worse than like just coming out with a new initiative that you didn't ask any members about. And it's not helpful for them because it wastes your own time too. And so I love to make just a quick little survey just to see what they think. Some can be short, some can be long, and to see what they think. We use Typeform for all of ours. And so Circle embeds those really easily too. So if I just have a survey, I'm like, hey, I have 2 questions or 3 questions I'd love to know the answers to. I can just embed it in a post. It takes 1 minute for them to fill out. It's multiple choice. They don't have to reply. It's so easy. And so I feel like surveys just enhance the member experience because it helps drive the direction of the community.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, so you're like, this is also a thing that so many communities do not do, which is ask members enough, like, or frequently enough. Like, you would probably ask people, let's say, 1 week after they've joined about how they're feeling, but then you never check in with them. And I've made this mistake. I'm saying because I've made this mistake. And yeah, what you're saying makes so much sense once again.
And it's so easy too, because especially so many community builders are like one-man shows, or like I said, you maybe have one contractor or so.
Mm.
And so it's so easy because I feel like with community, it's really easy to spread yourself thin and forget about things. And so even like like surveys. So let's say there's a survey that you're like, you know what, they come in with a specific purpose. Like, what do they want even just a month or two after they've joined? That's why workflows and automations are so important. You could put a survey link into that and it triggers a month after they've joined, and just getting their feedback constantly, I think is so important. And one thing we've started doing too is we survey, or we just have a quick little 2 question thing when people cancel. When people cancel their membership, we want to know why to cancel. Like, let us
Mm.
know. We need to get better. And we regularly review that now, and we try to make
Yeah.
those changes to increase that retention.
Yeah, yeah. And talking about retention, this is a perfect segue into my next question, which is how how do you increase retention, or how do you think about the churn problem in an online community membership?
Yeah, so that is obviously always top of mind, especially like for our marketing team and our business
Mhm.
side of things, is we want to keep those people, right? And of course I
Yeah.
do too. I don't want to lose members. And I think it's always like one thing that's really big on my mind too, and it's just a real-time problem we're seeing very transparently, is there are some people who join our community for a specific course. and then they leave after they're done with the course, or they join for an accelerator and then they leave. And you're never going to 100% alleviate that issue. Like you're not going to be able to get everybody to stay. Like if there's a community out there that has 100% retention or 99%, would love to meet you and have dinner. But one thing I am working on very strategically right now is, okay, we have this problem where we have people who join for accelerators. So for example, I think our number is anywhere from 40 to 45 new members joined for this accelerator that we have attributed just through links and such. And okay, so we have that many people. How are we going to keep them around after? And so that is one of my current tasks. And so some things I'm going to be trying is, okay, at the end of that accelerator experience, I'm going to just conveniently the workshop in the next couple weeks after that, or maybe shortly after those people would renew, like a quarterly renewal, I'm going to have a high interest YouTube related event. Okay, because these people are already obviously interested in YouTube. Okay, well, there's an event that is really close to or right after the date that you would have to renew. So you can't have it unless you renew. So that's one just easy tactic we can do. And so that's something I'm working through. But also making sure that there's things in place to where when they're done with the accelerator, they're obviously going to be asking themselves, now what? Okay, I can easily do a group message or an automation that once they finish a course, okay, here's a survey to learn what to do next. Like, here's like that logic-based quiz I did. Okay, let's figure out what is the good, like the best next step for you. So you've already done this. Let's take this and see what it suggests for you. And obviously, I'm always there if they have deeper questions or want to talk about deeper recommendations. But just finding things to always keep them engaged. And going back to surveys, I feel like surveys have to increase retention because you're knowing what the community actually wants and what's going to drive them to stay. And so I think those are really big too. But that's a couple things that I feel really keep people and just always having something to look forward to. So like there are some communities I've seen that like looking at their events calendar, it's very sparse and there's nothing on the calendar for the next month. I always try to have events posted about a month ahead of time so they can see what's coming up. So like if we have a really big workshop in a month and a half, I'm going to post it because it's going to gather those RSVPs and it's going to build anticipation and it's something I can talk about. So it's going to hopefully increase retention for people that were maybe on the fence, but they're like, oh, that workshop sounds really good. I'm going to stick around for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this. Okay. Ashley, we're getting towards the end of this interview now, and I have just a couple more questions for you before I let you go and wrap up this interview.
Yeah.
So, question number one, so people, you're also trying to teach this, you mentioned in this conversation that you're building like a course for building communities, and you're thinking about this actively. So probably this is the perfect time to ask you this question. If I, as a creator, am building a community, then what should I be thinking, like spending most of my time thinking about? Or like, what should I be thinking about at nights? The one thing that I should be focused on and that really makes or breaks things.
I think the first thing, so for people who are just starting a community from scratch, there's a few things you need to start thinking about that I think is really important. So obviously you want to know your community's purpose. So what is it? And everything you do there, ask yourself, does it align with this? Because it can get really muddy really easily. Because obviously you're going to have community members come in and they could be like, oh, like, why don't you offer this? And if it doesn't align with the purpose of your community, you shouldn't just want to try to please that member, So thinking about its purpose, thinking about what you can offer that's engaging and interactive and builds that up community. But not only that, what can you manage? I think it's really easy for us to see everything communities are doing. And I'm sure there's some people listening right now that are like, oh my gosh, she does all of that for the community. I do because that is my one job. I have no other aspect of the SPI business to worry about. And we have a lot of members. And so I get to devote my time. I don't expect everybody listening to have a workshop a week. You're working on a course at the same time. I don't expect that. That's not realistic for a lot of community builders. And so you need to ask yourself, what can I manage? And it's best to have a couple things and promise those couple things. So if you have office hours every other week and you have one event a month that's live and you know you can do those, promise those two things, add more later if you want to add more later. It's really easy to try to say, well, I want to do a weekly office hours. I also want to have a weekly event. I want to have this and that. And you promise all of that, you're going to get burnout. Members are going to be disappointed when you start not doing those things. And so it's better, I feel like, to start small and add and be realistic with yourself. And like I said, just once you start the community, I think the biggest driving question is, what do my members want? And does it align with what I want this community to be? And how can I make this happen for them? Because there are plenty of times where I've tried something in the community and it flops. Like it just doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, how can I alter this so it does work? Or should I just scrap it and try something new later that they actually do want? And so constantly kind of humbling yourself and like, okay, it's not about what I want or what I think works. What does the community think? I think is a really big thing once you start going with your community. The other thing I have realized is so major with community is your onboarding. You need to make sure you are as proactive as possible with your onboarding because that's going to alleviate a lot of essentially like customer service issues. It's going to help people have the best experience possible because when people come into the All Access Pass, for example, they have access to like 20 courses and mini courses, a library of probably 100 recordings. It's overwhelming. And there's like 30 spaces on the side. It's really overwhelming. And so I needed to create a cohesive onboarding experience so they feel confident and not overwhelmed. And so just one big tip I have with onboarding, if your community has the option, our onboarding is set up like a course. And so it takes them through one thing at a time. I can also see on my end what they've done. And so if for some reason someone comes to me and they're confused about something, I can be like, well, you didn't watch this lesson. I really think you should go watch this because it answers the question. But just making sure you have all your ducks in a row when it comes to onboarding, because that's going to not only make their experience better, but it's going to free up a lot of your time in the long run. So onboarding also. So there's a lot to think about, but onboarding and also just being realistic with yourself of what you can offer sanely.
Yeah, I think those two are really the key. And yeah, you're spot on with this recommendation. And the final question that I have is, who do you follow or where do you go? You mentioned you're in the circle community a lot, but is there any other resource that you would recommend to the listeners about where they can learn about community building?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is actually an area I would love to grow in more because I feel like coming outside the community world at first, like I've been in it for 2 years, which is even crazy to think at this point it's been that long. I rely on the circle community a lot because there's just such a wide range of people. Like I said, I've started following some like bigger community builders and community experts on LinkedIn. There are podcasts out there and stuff. So there's no like specific ones I listen to, but like podcasts like yours are fantastic for learning and hearing all the viewpoints, even like as community builders, joining a community about community, like they
Yeah.
exist. I know, for example, so like we are Circle users, but I know you can join the Heartbeat community for free, even without a Heartbeat account. And so there are communities like that out there where you can still learn. And I've started doing that. I have an account with Heartbeat just to like, because there's programming in there that's applicable too. And maybe down the road, I'll do my own thing and choose Heartbeat too. Like, who knows? But I think the answer is I feel I should do a little more with that. But the circle community has been really big for me. And just following people as I run into them on LinkedIn, as just looking who other community builders are commenting on and checking out their profiles. If in the circle community, there was a really great event with a community builder, I'm going to go follow him on LinkedIn and listen to his insights or see where he's hanging out. So I think that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, I love this. Okay. This is fantastic. I will plug in Beginner Maps. You mentioned this podcast
Yeah,
has the resource. Yeah, we also
absolutely.
have like an email course where people can sign up and get. So I'm condensing the best tricks that every interviewee tells me about and putting that into an email-based course that you can
Nice.
sign up for. So yeah, but apart from that, I think this has been a fantastic conversation, Ashley. And yeah, thank you so much for just coming in here and sharing all of your pro tips with us, your magic sauce,
Yeah.
and being so open with us about it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It was truly a blast talking about everything that we have going on and everything I've learned.